Hello, everybody. It is Miss Smith again. I'm recording a video for Wednesday's lesson if you were absent or you need a refresher. The first thing that we did was for our right now, created a list of how movies and TV shows create mystery, suspense, or surprise. Write down as many ideas as you can. This should take some thinking. If you are not here, I implore you to create a list. And think about, how do movies and TV shows create mystery? What makes something suspenseful or surprising in a movie or TV show? Today, when we were doing our discussion, we were focusing on body language, which some of our classes talked about yesterday. When you are sharing with somebody else your ideas, you should consider the following: keeping your eyes on the speaker, make sure that your body is facing the speaker, be silent while the speaker is talking. Your head should be supported by your neck, which means that it shouldn't be on your arm, like we see President Obama doing, or on your desk. You should be supporting your head with your entire neck. Your body should be upright, and you should be giving nonverbal cues that you are listening, which we do see President Barack Obama doing in the little GIF over here. So those are some ways to show the person that you are listening and listening respectfully. Sometimes we might be listening but doing something else, and it doesn't appear as if we're listening. So sometimes the appearance of listening is just as important as actually listening. And we want to show our speaker that we are hearing what they are saying. Like we talked about yesterday, there is going to be a point where I'm grading you on your speaking and listening skills, probably this week. So practicing today with the listening portion by having good body language is a great practice for when you're being graded for it. For attendance today, we're going to share one way a writer creates suspense, mystery, or surprise, while I created a list for the class. Our procedure reminders today are the big 5 norms, which are being prompt, being prepared, being productive, being polite, and being patient. As always, you should begin the right now as soon as the bell rings, and you should be writing for the entire time of the timer. Push your writing. You are in 10th grade. You should be able to write on a topic for more than a minute or two. So please use up all 4 minutes. We talked about the continuum of consequences. So if I need to say something to you more than once, what happens? I will give a second reminder, usually with the words, "This is your second reminder." After that, if you continue the behavior, it's going to be a hall conference and then possibly a phone call home. And then finally, if you're doing what you're doing now, looking at this Google Classroom video, you're following procedure number 5, which is what to do if you've missed work. Check the Google Classroom for the slideshow, for any videos, and then for your homework. All right, and then we went into dear time, 15 minutes of silent reading. I encourage you to do that whether or not you were in class today. The video expectations. So we are going to start by talking about suspense by a filmmaker who is really well known for suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. If you do not know who he is, you should Google him, especially if you're interested in film. He was very important. He's going to talk to us about how he builds suspense in movie making or in storytelling. So this is a very quick video. As you'll see from this slide, it's only 3 minutes and 19 seconds long. You should, as you are watching this video, have your eyes on the screen or on your page. There's instructions here for notes that you should be taking, and it should be absolutely silent, like we see Eddie Murphy indicating in the corner. Please record in your ELA journal the following 3 things. So in order to make that recording, you should draw a line underneath your last right now, today's right now, and write suspense notes and the date so that you know what it was that you were writing. This is going to be pretty important when you're going to revise your paper, which we'll talk about later, that you know what are some ways that authors build suspense so that you can use that in your essay to talk about how Saki, the author of The Interlopers, built suspense in that short story. So the 3 things you're going to write down are 3 ways movies create suspense. 3 ways movies create suspense according to Alfred Hitchcock. He's going to tell us that in the video. 2 ways suspense is different than shock. He will be explaining that also. And then 1 question that you still have. This is called a 3-2-1 protocol. So you're actually writing 6 things. 3 ways movies create suspense. 2 ways suspense is different than shock. 1 question you still have. That will help you later when you are thinking about suspense and how Saki used it in our story, The Interlopers. So if you are watching this video, I'm not going to play this while my video is playing, but I'm going to include a link to this Alfred Hitchcock video. It's on YouTube. You are going to watch this video and you are going to record down the 3, 2, 1 in the last slide. And if you need a reminder about what the instructions were, just rewind the video that I'm giving you right now so that you can remember what the 3 things that you were writing down were. So watch that video, record down the 3 things. After you are done recording and watching, we are going to consider these 3 guiding questions as we look again at the interlopers. What information does the author give us? What do we know at each point in the story? What does the audience expect to happen? That's going to create some suspense. So like Alfred Hitchcock talked about in the video, we expect that that suitcase is going to explode. So as we are waiting and for that thing that we are expecting, there is an element of suspense. And then how do the actual events differ from what the audience expects? That's surprise. So you're going to consider suspense and surprise as we are reading through the interlopers again. And as you're reading through the interlopers again, you are going to be annotating for a purpose. So we talked yesterday about annotating for the gist or the main idea, annotating to understand. We created a list of ways that people annotate to understand something. And we're going to actually keep adding to that list because that was not a comprehensive list. Today, we're going to talk about another way to annotate, which is annotating for a purpose. So when you are given a writing prompt, you should be annotating the text that you are writing about according to what the prompt is asking you. So the prompt was asking us to analyze ways that the author includes or creates the element of surprise. So as you are reading through the interlopers, you should have been annotating for ways that the author includes the element of surprise. I'm going to show you how to do that. But for future writing prompts, you really do want to annotate not only for understanding, but especially for what the prompt is asking you so that you have some quick evidence to grab when you begin your writing. So I've separated this into 4 different things I can annotate for. I can look at the structure of the text to see how he creates the element of surprise, the pacing of the text, which means the timing that he creates or uses in his writing. If things are really fast or slow or pop up all of a sudden, that's pacing. Suspenseful language that he uses, language that gives a certain tone or a sense of anticipation, or suspense in plot, what's happening in the story that's creating suspense. So I have this graphic organizer that I'm going to use, but you can use too. And I pulled some of these things from actually the language of the prompt. They gave us some hints about things to look out for. But I'm here on the left, we have some text from the story, The Interlopers, and I'm going to see what from this text gives us the element of suspense or surprise. So, in a forest of mixed growth, somewhere on the eastern spurs of the Carpathians, a man stood one winter night watching and listening. So, right away, I noticed that winter night is a descriptor that's giving me a ominous, kind of creepy feeling. It's dark, it's cold, we're in the middle of the night. So that is language suspense. For me, it's suspenseful language. I'm going to put that over here. So winter night, and then just kind of it's giving us like a darker tone. You could have also done what I did and just highlighted it or maybe made a note in the columns. I've got this graphic organizer here to help us out, but you can text code in whatever way makes sense to you. A man stood one winter night watching and listening as though he waited for some beast of the woods to come within range of his vision. All right, again, we've got something here, some language that's giving us a not so positive sense of what's happening. So I'm going to add this to my suspenseful language list, beast of the woods. Usually when we talk about animals, we can talk about them in positive or negative connotations, but in context, but beasts of the woods is pretty negative. So that's, again, giving us kind of a negative connotation that what he's looking out for is wild and not necessarily friendly. So he waited for some beasts of the woods the beast of the woods to come within the range of his vision and later of his rifle. All right, we see a weapon here, okay? He is looking out for something, but he's also looking to possibly shoot it. So this could be in several different columns. It's kind of up to you about where you want to put it. I'm going to say that this is more of suspense than surprise, but maybe it was surprising to you that he had a weapon, in which case you would put that somewhere else. So I'm going to put mine in the last column for suspense and plot, because now we're waiting for something. We're waiting for something because he mentioned a rifle. Okay, so now that we've got a weapon, we are kind of waiting to see what happens with this weapon. For me, that creates a suspense and plot. But if you are saying that this was surprising because he just kind of jumped on it in the last part of the sentence, you might put that in structure of text or pacing. But the game for whose presence he kept so keen an outlook, which we talked about the meaning of that yesterday, the animal who he was really looking out for, was none that figured in the sportsman's calendar as lawful and proper for the chase. It was not something that was legal for him to be hunting. Ulrich von Gradwitz patrolled the dark forest in quest of a human enemy. So again, I'm seeing winter night, beast of the woods, dark forest. For me, this is another bit of language that creates an ominous tone or a kind of negative or scary scene. So I'm going to put here dark forest. And then again, this is kind of ominous tone or setting that he's creating here. Ulrich von Gradwitz patrolled the dark forest in quest of a human enemy. Here, again, this can go in several different columns. We see that he's hunting a human. So that might have been really surprising for you because he just added that, the author just added that to the end of the sentence, especially after such a long description of the scenery. Maybe that pacing created a surprise for you, and you would put that in the pacing portion. Perhaps you think that it was a structural choice, so he builds, and then all of a sudden he's wham, giving us a human enemy. So that is maybe a structural choice for you. Or maybe you're saying that it's a suspense in plot. So now we know that he's hunting a human. We're expecting a person in this deep, dark wood, and perhaps the use of a rifle. So maybe that was suspense and plot for you. For me, I think that was surprising because of the structure that he created in that first paragraph. So he introduced human enemy at the end of a long description of setting. So for me, that was surprising because I was expecting an animal. That throughout the entire description. Now, I want you to notice kind of some things that I did here. I did not write incomplete sentences in my graphic organizer. I reread some of these sentences multiple times and got something different out of each read. I noticed that there was no right or wrong answer for whether or not it was a structure of text move, a pacing move, a suspense and plot move, maybe a language move. However, I'm building my argument based on my opinion. So wherever I put these is going to be right as long as it helps me build my argument for how he's building surprise and suspense in his writing. So that's what I'm kind of expecting you to do. Is I am expecting you to not write incomplete sentences. I'm expecting you to kind of figure out how he's building suspense and surprise through these categories, or maybe even your own categories, depending on how you're reading this text. So what you're going to do next is you're going to silently read and annotate your own chunk of the text. This is again going to be listed under resources. You are going to get another chunk of the story, and you can annotate it however you see fit. You can give a symbol for each category. So by category, I mean structure of text, pacing, suspenseful language, or suspense and plot. You can maybe mark a circle for one, a diamond for another, a heart or a star. Make it clear to yourself what each symbol means. Maybe you underline or circle or box or double underline each strategy. So every time you see language, you underline it. Anytime you see a structural choice, you circle the whole part that was a structural decision. So maybe you annotate that way. Maybe you create notes in the margins. So you say like language, LANG. Maybe you put down the notes like I did in kind of a little bit longer explanation if you have room. Or maybe you complete a graphic organizer, which is going to be provided for you. Obviously, when we're in a testing environment, you will not be given a graphic organizer, but you can easily make one on the scratch paper that you're always given. You're always going to be given a blank sheet of paper. So perhaps using that to create your own graphic organizer quickly using the language from the prompt will be helpful for you. So you can choose A, B, C, or D, but you are annotating the chunk of text that you were given. After you're finished, you're going to be talking with the partner about what strategy you use to analyze the element of surprise in the ending of the story, which was the chunk that you have been given. And then we're going to talk about what strategies you all used. We're focusing on this metacognitive task of deciding how we text coded and annotated and made sense of the text based on the prompt and suspense and surprise. We're focusing on that metacognition because that's going to be what helps us with the next prompt. Perhaps the next prompt isn't about surprise or suspense, but something entirely different. However, if we have a toolbox of how to annotate for a purpose, so like I created a note every time he used something dark or ominous, that is something that you can use later in another prompt, is like looking out for specific work key terms. So we're focusing on strategies because that's something that's going to carry with us later. Your homework tonight is to complete annotations for the story. You're actually going to get a copy of the entire story again in the materials, and you need to annotate for a purpose. Specifically how the author creates elements of surprise, which was part of the prompt. However, if part of the text is not making sense to you, please annotate for understanding as well, such as defining new words and asking questions of the text, because that you need to understand the text in order to annotate for a purpose. You can't figure out how he creates surprise if you don't understand the story. So annotate how you see fit. I expect annotations for a purpose at least. I should see you talking to the text on your page, focusing on surprise. The annotations can take any form that we discussed today, but your story should be pretty marked up. This is going to be extraordinarily important because you're going to use these annotations in order to help you revise your paper that you wrote when we started the SLO. And if you already know all the places where his structure creates suspense or all the places where his language creates suspense, you're going to have a really easy time pulling things from the text to talk about in your paper. So the more annotations, the better, that focus on annotating for a purpose, how the author creates an element of surprise. Tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down the rubric, scoring a sample paper, and learning how to give effective peer feedback. As always, if you have any questions, please email your teacher or check out Google Classroom for anything that might help you clarify. Never don't do the assignment. Try the assignment even if you feel confused, and then be prepared to bring your questions to class the next day if you didn't ask them to me digitally. All right, pretty people, I'm leaving. Thank you so much for watching this video and being responsible for your own learning. You're the best.